Hey guys! In today's video I'm going to share with you a breathtaking story. Let's learn about the incredible story of Nora Sinclair, a woman who, after a near-death experience, received a frightening and prophetic vision about the future of humanity, scheduled for August 15, 2024. If you are curious to know what she saw and how this revelation could impact all of us, don't miss this story until the end. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, take the opportunity now to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any surprising content like this. Hello, my name is Nora Sinclair. I'm 42 years old and live in Sedona, Arizona, with my husband Ed. Until a few months ago, I lived a pretty ordinary life. I worked as an accountant at a local office, spent my weekends hiking in the beautiful Red Mountains here in Sedona, and sometimes went with Ed to visit our parents in Phoenix. A peaceful life, you know. But all that changed on a night that seemed like any other. Before I tell you what happened, I want you to understand one thing. I have always been a practical person, with my feet on the ground. I've never been very interested in spiritual or supernatural matters. Of course, living in Sedona, you end up hearing all kinds of stories about energy vortexes and mystical experiences, but I've always approached it with skepticism. It was the kind of thing that happened to other people, never to me, but now I know there's so much more to this world than we can see or touch. What I'm about to tell you has completely changed my worldview, my understanding of life and death. It's a story that, if someone had told me a few months ago, I probably would have doubted or even laughed. But today, as I prepare for what is to come on August 15, 2024, I know every word is true. So if you're listening to this, I want you to know that I understand if you have questions. I would have, in your place. But I ask that you keep your mind open, because what happened to me, what I saw and felt, could very well change your life too. And with what's about to happen, we all need to be prepared. This is the story of my near-death experience, the revelations I received, and the warning I need to share with the world. It's a journey that has taken me beyond the limits of what I believed was possible, and which now places me in a position of great responsibility. Because what's coming will not just affect me, but all of us. So if you're ready, I'll start from the beginning. From the night my life changed forever. From the night I died and came back. It was a Tuesday night, I remember that well. It had been an ordinary day at work. Nothing special. I got home, had dinner with Ed, we watched some TV and got ready for bed. Ed was in the bathroom brushing his teeth and I was folding some clothes in the bedroom. That's when it all started. Suddenly I felt a wave of nausea so strong it made me dizzy. I had never felt anything like it before. It was as if my entire body was rebelling against me. I barely had time to run to the bathroom before I started vomiting violently. Ed was scared, asking if I was okay, but I could barely answer. I remember kneeling on the cold bathroom floor, my hands shaking as I held onto the toilet. My vision began to blur, and a strange ringing filled my ears. The last thing I heard was Ed's voice shouting my name, sounding distant as if it came from another world. And then, darkness. A complete and utter void. I can't say how long I stayed in that state. It could have been seconds, minutes, or hours. At that moment, time seemed to have no meaning. But then, slowly, I began to become aware again. Not of my body, not of the bathroom or of Ed. It was a different consciousness, as if I were just thought. Pure existence. That's when I realized I was somewhere new. It wasn't a physical place, at least not as we understand it. It was more like a state of being. I was in a dark hallway, but it wasn't a normal hallway. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything seemed to be made of a substance I couldn't identify. It was solid, but at the same time it felt fluid, as if it could change at any moment. And at the end of that corridor, there was a light. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. It was white, bright, but not dazzling. It was as if the light was alive, pulsing with its own energy. And the strangest thing? I knew somehow that this light was calling to me. Not with words, but with an attraction that I felt in the depths of my being. At that moment, a part of me knew something extraordinary was happening. I should have been scared, panicked even. After all, I was in a completely unknown place, with no idea how I got there. But for some reason, I didn't feel scared. On the contrary, I felt an intense curiosity and an irresistible desire to get closer to that light. So, I started walking. Or at least I thought I was walking. It was more like he was floating towards the light. Every step I took, or thought I took, made me feel lighter, more free. As if I was leaving behind a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. As I got closer to the light, I started to feel something even stranger. It was as if the light was getting to know me, not just seeing myself, but actually getting to know myself on a level I had never experienced before. It was as if every thought, every memory, every emotion I had ever had was being seen and understood. And it was in that moment, as I approached this light that seemed to know every part of me, that I understood. I was no longer in my body. I had died. When I realized she was dead, I expected to feel fear, sadness, maybe even anger. But what I felt was relief. A deep and complete peace that I had never experienced before. It was as if all the problems, all the worries I carried had simply disappeared. As I got closer to the light, it became more and more intense. But it wasn't an intensity that hurt or bothered. It was welcoming, comforting. I felt enveloped by a love so pure and unconditional it was almost hard to believe. And then suddenly, I was inside the light. Or maybe the light was inside me. It's difficult to explain in words, because what I experienced goes beyond human language. It was as if I had merged with something greater, something infinitely more vast and complex than I could ever imagine. In this state, I began to receive information. They were not words or images, but a kind of direct knowledge, as if fundamental truths about the universe were being downloaded directly into my consciousness. I understood that our physical reality, the world we know, is just a small part of something much larger. That there are multiple dimensions, multiple levels of existence, all interconnected in ways that our human minds can barely begin to comprehend. I saw that we, as human beings, are much more than our physical bodies. We are pure consciousness, energy, part of a much greater whole. Our life on Earth is like a school, a training ground where we come to learn and evolve. As I absorbed these revelations, I felt a presence. It was not a figure or a form, but a vast and ancient consciousness. This presence began to communicate with me, not with words, but with thoughts and emotions that I could understand perfectly. Presence showed me that every action, every thought we have, has an impact on the universe, that everything is connected, and that love, not just romantic love, but universal, compassionate love, is the most powerful force there is. I was introduced to concepts like karma and reincarnation, but in a way that went far beyond what I had ever heard. I saw that our souls choose the experiences they will have in each life, with the aim of growing and evolving. And then, the presence showed me something that left me breathless if I was still breathing in that state. I saw Earth, our planet, but from a completely different perspective. I saw lines of energy running across its surface, as if it were a giant nervous system. That's when I received the most shocking information of all. On August 15, 2024, something extraordinary would happen. A spiritual portal would open on Earth, allowing for unprecedented interaction between our physical world and other dimensions of existence. The presence explained to me that this event would be a turning point for humanity, an opportunity for collective evolution, but also a great challenge, because with this opening, not only light would come, but also shadow, and humanity would need to be prepared. At that moment, I felt the weight of this revelation. I understood that I had been chosen to receive this message for a reason, that I had a role to play in what was to come. The responsibility was immense, almost overwhelming. But before I could fully process what was happening, I heard a voice, a familiar voice, distant but clear. It was Ed calling me back. Hearing Ed's voice was like being pulled from a deep dream. For a moment I was confused. Part of me wanted to stay in that state of peace and understanding, immersed in the light and knowledge I was receiving. But another part, a part I didn't know existed until that moment, answered the call. The presence that was with me seemed to understand what was happening. I felt like I was receiving one last message. You have a choice now. You can stay or you can go back. But remember, if you go back, you will carry with you the knowledge of what you saw and the responsibility that comes with it. At that moment, I made my decision. Or maybe the decision was made by me, I can't say for sure. But suddenly, I felt like I was being pulled back, away from the light, through the dark hallway. The sensation was strange, as if I were falling and flying at the same time. The revelations I had received began to blend together, as if they were being compressed to fit back into my human mind. It was almost painful, like trying to force an entire ocean into a bottle. And then, suddenly, I felt an impact. It was as if I had dived back into my body. The first thing I noticed was the cold of the bathroom floor against my skin. Then Ed's voice, now clear and close, almost shouting my name. I opened my eyes, and the bathroom light seemed blinding for a moment. I blinked several times, trying to focus. I saw Ed's face above me, his eyes wide with worry. He was holding my head, and I realized I was lying on the bathroom floor. "Nora, thank God," Ed exclaimed. "You fainted. I was about to call an ambulance." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. Ed helped me sit up, leaning me against the bathroom wall. He offered me a glass of water, which I drank slowly. How long was I unconscious? I finally managed to ask. "About 5 minutes, maybe," Ed replied, still looking scared. "But it felt like forever. You weren't breathing properly. I thought I lost you." 5 minutes. It seemed impossible. The experience I had lived seemed to have lasted hours, even days. How could all of that have happened in just 5 minutes? As Ed helped me up and carried me to bed, I began to feel the weight of the revelations I had received. It was as if every cell in my body was vibrating with new energy, new knowledge. Lying in bed with Ed next to me holding my hand, I tried to process everything that had happened. I knew my life would never be the same again, that I would never be the same again. And as sleep began to envelop me, a certainty formed in my mind. I had a mission now. Something important was about to happen, and I needed to prepare. The world needed to prepare. The days following my experience were, to say the least, surreal. It was like I was living in two worlds at the same time. On the one hand, there was the daily routine, waking up, having coffee, going to work. On the other, there was this new awareness, this new understanding that seemed to permeate every aspect of my life. Ed, of course, was worried. He insisted that I go to the doctor, fearing that my fainting could be a symptom of something more serious. I ended up agreeing, more to reassure him than because I believed anything was comically wrong. The doctor ran a series of tests, but found nothing abnormal. "It was probably just a pressure drop," he said, "but let's keep an eye on it, okay?" I nodded, thanked him, and left the office with an ironic smile on my lips. How could I explain to a doctor that what I had experienced went far beyond a simple drop in blood pressure? At work, things felt different too. The spreadsheets and numbers that once took up all my attention now seemed insignificant. It wasn't that I stopped doing my job, but it was like I could see past him, understand his place in the grand scheme of things. In the weeks that followed, I found myself constantly reflecting on everything that had happened. It was difficult to reconcile the normal life I had before with the revelations I had received. How could I explain to the people around me that I had seen beyond the veil of reality, that I knew something monumental was about to happen? I started researching near-death experiences. I read dozens of reports, scientific articles, books. Many of the experiences I read about had similarities to mine: the tunnel, the light, the feeling of peace. But none mentioned the specific notice about the portal that would open on August 15th, 2024. It made me question, why me? Why was this information entrusted to me? I was nobody special. I didn't have any extraordinary gifts or abilities. She was just an ordinary accountant from a small town in Arizona. What could I do with this information? These questions kept me up at night. I tossed and turned in bed, going over every detail of my experience, trying to extract more information, more guidance on what I should do. Ed noticed the change in me, of course. How could I not notice? I was quieter, more introspective. I spent hours staring into space, lost in thought. He tried to talk to me about it several times, but how could I explain something I could barely understand myself? "I'm fine, Ed," I'd say. "I'm just processing some things." He wasn't satisfied with that answer, I knew. But what else could I say? That he had died and come back? That he had received a cosmic message about an event that would change the world? I could hardly believe it. How could I expect him to? It was at this time that I started meditating. I had never been the spiritual type before, but now I felt an almost physical need to connect with, well, whatever it was that I had experienced during my near death. At first it was frustrating. I would sit down, close my eyes, and nothing happened. My mind was racing in 1,000 different directions, filled with everyday worries and existential questions. But, little by little, I began to find moments of calm, of clarity. During these meditations, I would sometimes have glimpses, flashes of the experience I had. Never as clear or intense as the original experience, but enough to remind me that it hadn't been a dream or a hallucination. It was real. All of that was real. And with that realization came a sense of purpose. I might not fully understand why I had been chosen to receive this message, but I knew I had a responsibility. The world was about to change, and somehow, I was part of it. I started taking notes. Everything I remembered from my experience, every detail, every sensation. I wrote about the portal that would open, about the energies that would flow into our world. I didn't know exactly what to do with this information yet, but I felt it was important to record it. As the days passed, a certainty grew within me. I needed to prepare, not just mentally or spiritually, but in every way possible. Because when August 15th, 2024 rolled around, I would need to be ready. For what exactly, I still didn't know, but I was determined to find out. As the months passed, the changes in me became more and more evident. These were not just internal changes in thinking and perspective, but changes that affected my daily life, my relationships, my way of living. One of the first things I noticed was an increased sensitivity. It was as if my senses were heightened, not just physically, but on a deeper level. I could feel the emotions of those around me with frightening clarity. At times it was almost too much. Being in crowded places became a challenge with so many different energies hitting me at the same time. My diet also changed naturally. I started to feel an aversion to processed foods and meats. Instead, I found myself drawn to more natural foods, fruits, vegetables. It was as if my body knew exactly what it needed to stay balanced. At work, things got complicated. The routine that previously seemed normal and even comfortable to me now became increasingly suffocating. Crunching numbers, doing calculations, filling out spreadsheets, it all seemed so insignificant compared to what I knew was coming. I started making mistakes, getting distracted easily. My boss noticed, of course. "Nora, is everything okay?" he asked me one day, after I had delivered a report full of errors. "You seem distant lately." I tried to explain, to say that I was going through some personal changes, but the words felt empty. How could I explain that I was preparing for a cosmic event that would change the world? At home, things weren't easy either. Ed, my husband, was increasingly concerned and confused by my behavior. He tried to be understanding, but I could see the frustration in his eyes when I spent hours meditating, or when I found myself staring into space, lost in thought about what was to come. "Nora, you need to talk to me," he said one night, sitting next to me on the couch. "What's going on? Ever since that night in the bathroom, you haven't been yourself." I wanted to tell him. I wanted to share everything I had seen, everything I knew. but the words kept getting stuck in my throat. How can we explain something so vast, so beyond our everyday understanding? Ed, I began, hesitantly. I know this is hard to understand, but something changed in me that night. I saw things. I learned things. And now, I know something important is going to happen. Something that will change everything. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes full of concern and love. Nora, have you ever thought about talking to someone about this? A therapist, maybe? His words hit me like a punch in the gut. He thought I was going crazy. And how could I blame him? If the roles were reversed, I would probably think the same. But I knew I wasn't crazy. What I had experienced was real, more real than anything I had ever experienced before. And I knew I had a responsibility. The world needed to prepare for what was coming, and in some way I was part of it. That night, lying in bed next to Ed, I made a decision. I needed to find other people who understood, who had been through similar experiences. I needed allies on this journey, because as August 15th, 2024 approached, I knew I couldn't face what was coming alone. With the decision to seek out others who could understand my experience, I began exploring online groups and communities dedicated to near-death experiences and spiritual phenomena. At first, I felt a little lost. There were so many stories, so many different interpretations of what happens after death. I participated in forums, read testimonials, watched videos. Some stories resonated with me, echoing aspects of my own experience. Others looked so fantastic it was hard to believe. But through it all, I began to notice a pattern. Many people talked about a sense of purpose after their experiences, a feeling that they had returned to life for some specific reason. It was on one of these forums that I met Maria, a middle-aged woman from New Mexico who had had a near-death experience 2 years earlier. His story had striking similarities to mine: the light, the sense of peace, the received knowledge. But what really caught my attention was when she mentioned receiving a message about an important event happening in 2024. I contacted her immediately, my heart racing at the possibility of finally finding someone who understood. We exchanged emails, then talked on the phone. The conversation flowed as if we had known each other for years. I knew I wasn't the only one, Maria told me, her voice full of emotion. Ever since I got back, I've been feeling like something big is about to happen. Something that's going to change everything. We talked for hours, sharing details of our experiences, comparing the information we had received. Although there were differences in our visions, the core was the same. A portal would open, allowing unprecedented interaction between our world and other dimensions. What do you think we should do? I asked her. How can we prepare people for this? Maria was silent for a moment before responding. I'm not sure, Nora, but I know we were chosen for a reason. Maybe we should start gathering other people like us. Form a group, share what we know. The idea excited me and scared me at the same time. On the one hand, the prospect of finding more people who understood was comforting. On the other, the responsibility of sharing this information with the world was daunting. Over the next few weeks, Maria and I worked together to create an online group for people who had similar experiences. We started small, just the two of us and a few others we found on the forums. But little by little, the group grew. Each new person brought their own perspective, their own piece of the puzzle. Some had seen visions of the future, others had received messages about the need for planetary healing. Some talked about climate change, others about technological advances. But everyone agreed on one thing: something monumental was about to happen, and we had a role to play. As our group grew, I began to feel a change within myself. The confusion and fear I had initially felt began to give way to a sense of purpose and determination. We were no longer alone. Together, maybe we could really make a difference. But with this growth came new challenges. Some people accused us of spreading panic or misinformation. Others attempted to use the group to promote conspiracy theories or extremist ideologies. We had to be careful, establish clear rules, stay focused on our purpose. And while all this was happening, Time continued to pass. Each day brought us closer to August 15th, 2024. The urgency grew. We had to do more, reach more people. But how to do this without seeming crazy or alarmist? It was at that moment that I had an idea. If we wanted to be taken seriously, we needed more than just our personal stories. We needed evidence, a more scientific approach, and I knew exactly where to start. With the idea of seeking a more scientific approach, I began intensely researching quantum physics, theories of multiple universes, and studies on consciousness. I spent sleepless nights reading scientific articles, watching online lectures by renowned physicists, trying to understand how our experience could fit into what current science knows about reality. At the same time, our online group continued to grow. We created a website, started organizing regular virtual meetings. Maria became an invaluable partner, helping to moderate discussions and keep the group focused. It was during one of these virtual meetings that we met Dr. Alan Becker, a retired theoretical physicist who had gone through a similar near-death experience to ours. His scientific perspective was a watershed for the group. "What you describe," he told us in one of our meetings, "is not incompatible with some of the most advanced theories of quantum physics. The idea of multiple universes, of parallel realities that occasionally intersect, is not mere science fiction. It's a real possibility that many physicists take seriously." With Dr. Becker's guidance, we began to formulate testable hypotheses about what might happen on August 15th, 2024. He helped us understand how we could measure subtle changes in Earth's electromagnetic field, variations in the cosmic microwave background, even fluctuations in the fabric of space-time. Meanwhile, at home, things continued to be complicated with Ed. He still had difficulty understanding my new purpose, my obsession with what was to come. But slowly, as I saw the group grow and gain credibility, he began to accept that, even if he didn't fully understand it, this was important to me. "I don't know if I believe all this, Nora," he told me one night, "but I believe you. And if it's important to you, then it's important to me too." His words meant more to me than he could have imagined. Having your support, even if hesitant, gave me the strength to continue. As we got closer to the date, our preparation intensified. We started organizing teams in different parts of the world to monitor and record any anomalies or unusual phenomena. We create communication protocols, establish operation centers. But it wasn't all practical preparations. Many group members reported heightened spiritual experiences, visions, prophetic dreams, feelings of connection to something greater. I myself began to have vivid dreams, filled with symbols and messages that I couldn't fully understand. In one of these dreams, I saw myself standing on top of a mountain. The sky above was filled with impossible colors, rippling fractal patterns that seemed to contain all the knowledge in the universe. A voice, which seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time, spoke to me. "The veil is becoming thinner, Nora. The worlds are coming closer. You must be ready to serve as bridges." I woke up from this dream with a clarity I hadn't felt since my near-death experience. I understood that our role was not just to alert the world about what was coming, but also to help facilitate this transition, this convergence of realities. I shared this vision with the group, and many reported having had similar experiences. We began to incorporate meditation and expanded consciousness practices into our preparation, understanding that what was coming was not just a physical phenomenon, but also a profound shift in the collective consciousness of humanity. Dr. Becker helped us translate these subjective experiences into scientific hypotheses. "If we really are talking about a convergence of realities," he explained, "we might expect to see fluctuations in the fundamental constants of physics, variations in the speed of light, in Planck's constant, even in the strength of gravity. With this guidance, we have expanded our monitoring to include high-precision physics experiments in laboratories around the world. We establish partnerships with curious and open-minded scientists, willing to investigate what for many still seemed like science fiction. But not everything was discoveries and progress. As our message spread, we faced increasing skepticism and even hostility from certain quarters. We were ridiculed in mainstream media, labeled cultists and charlatans. Some people even accused us of trying to incite mass panic. Dealing with this resistance was one of the biggest challenges we faced. We had to learn to balance the urgency of our message with the need to present it in a way that people could accept and understand. We are not predicting the end of the world, I explained repeatedly in interviews and online posts. We're talking about a change, an evolution. It's something we need to prepare for, yes, but not something to be feared. Despite the challenges, our movement continued to grow. People from all corners of the world, of all cultures and backgrounds, joined us. Each brought their own perspective, their own piece of the cosmic puzzle we were trying to put together. And so, between scientific preparations, spiritual experiences, and the constant challenge of communicating our message to the world, the days passed. The calendar moved inexorably towards August 15, 2024. As the date approached, I felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation rising within me. We had done everything we could to prepare ourselves, to prepare the world. But would it be enough? Would we really be ready for what was to come? Here we are, just days away from August 15, 2024. The air feels thick with expectation, like the calm before a storm. But this is no ordinary storm approaching. It is a storm of change, of possibility, of transformation. Our group, which started with just a few people sharing similar experiences, has now become a global movement. We have operations centers on every continent, teams of scientists, doctors, psychologists, and spiritual experts ready for whatever happens. The last few months have been a roller coaster of emotions and events. We have seen a dramatic increase in reports of paranormal experiences around the world. Unexplained lights in the heavens, strange sounds emanating from the earth, people seeing visions and prophetic dreams en masse. It is as if the veil between the worlds is already becoming thinner, allowing more and more people to glimpse what lies beyond. Our scientific instruments have recorded increasingly frequent anomalies. Fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field, unexplained spikes in cosmic radiation, even small but measurable variations in the fundamental constants of physics. Dr. Becker and his team work tirelessly to understand and interpret this data. It's as if the very fabric of reality is preparing for a shift, he told me recently, his eyes shining with a mix of scientific excitement and spiritual awe. At home, things have finally stabilized with Ed. He still doesn't fully understand everything that's going on, but his support has been unwavering. I don't know what will happen on August 15th, he told me last night, hugging me, but I know we will be together to face whatever comes our way. His words comfort me more than he can imagine, because the truth is that despite all our preparation, there is still a lot we don't know. What exactly will happen when the portal opens? How will this affect our everyday reality? Are we really prepared to deal with the influx of energies and entities from other dimensions? These questions keep me up at night, make me question if we've done enough, but then I remember the peace I felt during my near-death experience, the unconditional love I experienced. And I know, deep down in my being, that what is coming is part of something bigger, something beautiful and transformative. In recent days, we have seen an increase in mainstream media interest in our message. Skeptical journalists who once ridiculed us now ask serious questions, intrigued by anomalies they can no longer ignore. World leaders have reached out to us in secret, seeking guidance on how to prepare for what is to come. And yet, there is resistance. There are those who deny that anything is about to happen, who accuse us of spreading unnecessary panic. There are others who see the imminent change as a threat, who want to close themselves off, isolate themselves from what is to come. But for every voice of denial or fear, there are 10 voices of hope and acceptance. People of all backgrounds, of all faiths, coming together in anticipation of something bigger than us all. Last night we had our last global meeting before the big day. Thousands of people from all over the world connected online, sharing their hopes, their fears, their visions for the future. The energy was palpable, even through the screens. Remember, I told them at the end of the meeting, No matter what happens on August 15th, we are not alone. We are part of something bigger, something beautiful and mysterious. The love I experienced during my almost death, the love that many of you have also felt, is real. It is the most powerful force in the universe. And it is this love that will guide us through what is to come. Now, sitting here in my home office, looking out the window at the red mountains of Sedona, I feel a peace I haven't experienced since that fateful night in the bathroom. I know we are on the cusp of something monumental, something that will change the course of human history forever. I don't know exactly what tomorrow will bring. I don't know what the world will be like after the portal opens, but I know that I will be here, with open arms and heart, ready to embrace whatever comes. Because that's what I came back for. That's what we're all here for. The sun is setting now, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple that seem almost otherworldly. In less than 24 hours, the world as we know it will change forever. And we will be here, ready to serve as bridges between the old and the new, between the known and the unknown. Let August 15, 2024 come. We are ready. So, what did you think of this incredible story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to be notified with each new video. Let's bring more people the hope that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.